Welcome back. Welcome back to my channel again. Shout out, thank you to all my new subscribers. I really appreciate you. And this channel, we gonna hit on different topics. It's not gonna be set on one thing. It's gonna be historical, conspiracy theories. It's gonna be on current events. It's gonna be on past events. I mean, I'm hitting everything because I don't want to be stuck on one genre, and we're going to hit celebrities as well because I like doing that too. It kind of, give you a break of the monotony of dealing with serious topics. This particular one, I'm back on Vice President Kamala Harris, about her dad, who is a college professor, socialist Marxist, her origins, ancestry. Candace Owen did a great job on that. And her lies and deceit. So without further ado, we'll see how this video doing. This is a recap before and after election. And I probably should say, because I got so much on her, it's probably gonna just this is probably just gonna be before. And I'm just gonna hit so currently she not running for office, and you know why? Because she don't want to answer any serious questions on her incompetence. You know, that's why she not running. She just want to put that behind her, and I don't blame her at all. Because I wouldn't want to be questioned the way they gonna dog her out about her incompetence and Biden's. Let me see. News. We don't put in news. Let me see what we got. Okay, so current news is she swears in top Democrat on committee probing Biden as chairman urges her to testify. Because people want to know, how long did you know that he was in mental decline? You saw him every day. You knew, and you covered it up along with his wife, Jill. The top Democratic on the House Oversight Committee was sworn into his new leadership role early this week by former VP Kamala Harris, one of the key ex-wife House officials the panel's chair is interested in hearing from is about President Joe Biden. Representative Robert Garcia was elected to serve as ranking member of the committee in June following the death of former ranking member Representative Jerry Conley of Virginia. Harris, who sworn Garcia in as mayor of Long Beach in 2014 when she was California's attorney general, reprised that role on Wednesday in a ceremonial swearing in where Garcia took over his new oversight role. He said, I think it would be helpful to hear from Vice President Kamala. And I think, if I were her, wanted to have a political future, I would want to set the record straight on a lot of this stuff because it's going to haunt her entire political year, her entire political career, because nobody thinks that Joe Biden was calling the shots in the end. And that's a fact. That's why she's not running. So Comer hints at seeking her testimony in the Biden auto pen probe. Representative Brandon Gill urges subpoena of her amid oversight investigation. They pressing for her testimony. This is why she not running. She don't want to deal with that. And plus she can't answer a straight question anyway. It would just be some BS. So she just had an anniversary with her husband, Dougie. All right, now we about to get into the old stuff.
For quite a while now. Check this out. Next 15 years, we are going to hit a short-term dystopian.
I want that. Oh shit.
There's no escaping that. What is the definition of a dystopia? In my mind, these are adverse.
All right, let's get into this.
Consulting the care clinic in Bethesda, Maryland.
Thank you for calling here. How can I help you?
I'm looking to have an abortion.
How long are you?
I'm 34 right now. I'm in a pretty desperate situation. My boyfriend is kind of out of the picture now, so I don't really have any support.
An abortion at any stage is actually much safer than delivering a term pregnancy. It's a 4 to 5 day procedure. We do some basic lab work on you and start to dilate your cervix. After that, we do what we call the fetal injection. A needle is inserted through the abdomen and into the fetal heart where lidocaine is injected, and that will completely numb the fetus so there's no pain. And then after that, we inject a medication called digoxin and another medication called KCL into the fetal heart, which will slow and then stop the fetal heartbeat. And on that fourth, depending on how your cervix is dilated, we'll break your water, and then we'll give you a medication called misoprostol. Misoprostol will sort of induce contraction and increase the dilation of your cervix. You're going to have contractions and cramping, and then we'll assist you in sort of pushing in the induction and then remove all of the products of conception. You're definitely going to feel discomfort and cramping and a lot of pressure, but we do give you fentanyl and Versed during the procedure. We specialize in later trimester care. Our doctor is very well versed in what he's doing, and he's very good.
So I'm not like a rare situation. Y'all help women this late in pregnancy all the time.
All the time.
Nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting.
The care clinic in Bethesda, Maryland.
The first lie. I need to write this down. Hold on 1 second. The first lie. America has always done late term abortion. Sorry about that. They have always done that. First line deceit that she did. And I need to keep that for my Planned Parenthood one. So a lot of this stuff I don't have anymore.
Chicago's manufacturing facility looks.
Mm-mm. Okay, let me knock that down, which is cool. Hey, all right, let's get to the next one. So that's our first lie. They lie all about abortion late, that it wasn't happening. It's been happening. I need to write this down for bricks. We need to talk about bricks. Okay, this is her origin. I hope it's not. Let me see how long this is.
James O'Keefe's Line in the Sand premiering only on TCN on October 10th.
Some of these jobs, she actually was doing multiple jobs on paper because Willie Brown, one of the child welfare and
Yeah, I want to go back.
politics there is to be tied to the coattails of Willie Brown, and so she did that, and I don't know what.
More than tied to the coattails.
Yeah, I mean, she's
sleeping with him.
She
right?
dated him.
Yeah.
That's how he
Was he
describes
married?
it. He is still married at the time. So he's 90 today, but he was married throughout this time that he was together with her for 2 years. Okay, and so they were a society couple, and they went to all the operas, ballets, black tie events very openly. And I've met Willie Brown several times. He just it's not disputed that he gave her start in politics, and almost certainly encourage, hey, maybe you should register to vote. That might be a good start. Certainly how to move up in the ranks. And so one of the ways you do that is you get started with some lower level elective office. But even before that, a lot of our politicians in Congress and in the Senate and, former presidents have been lawyers. It's a great stepping stone to a political career. So getting a good record in the DA's office would have been a way to do that. So she, hustled her way into the district attorney's office and immediately began setting her sights on her power base. So she developed relationships in the African American community, became friendly with Amos Brown, a notorious pastor and activist in the Bayview Hunters Point district, where is a large African American population there. And, it's one of the rougher parts of town where the projects are. A lot of the drug and gang violence
she
was centered
put their ass in
so she
jail,
tried to make
too.
that her patch. And her theme was, supposedly hard on crime, but not in an unfair, disproportionate way on the African American community. So, as you know, during that
That's a lie.
time, the 1990s,
Not for black men.
there was a lot of discussion in our country about harsh drug laws and disproportionate impact on African Americans. And so she kind of focused her efforts on that. And that was her assignment, was criminal organizations, basically gangs. Okay, so she was a gang and drug prosecutor, not a murder prosecutor or not a violent crime prosecutor. She never was that in her jobs before she became the district attorney. So she wanted those jobs, according to reporting at the time. She wanted to be moved up to the more serious responsibilities of violent crime and murder prosecutor, but she never was given that opportunity by Terrence Hallinan, who I think, reading between the lines, began to suspect that she was gunning for his job pretty early on. So after she was passed over a couple of times for the top lieutenant position in the district attorney's office, she quit. She quit and she went immediately sideways to the city attorney's office in San Francisco, which is also a prominent breeding ground for some excellent judges I've been in front of, have been city attorneys Dennis Herrera was the city attorney at the time, and he held that position for a
This
very
is her
long time.
origins. I'm gonna
So
skip
she
past
went
this.
sideways, and Amos Brown is representing that African American community, one of Willie Brown's people. So background in politics or anything, but he thought, well, this is a good way for you to learn the rules. She wasn't a volunteer, though. That's the key point. She was paid as a political consultant by Amos Brown's campaign, but she never registered under city law, which requires all political consultants who are paid by a campaign more than $1,000 to register. And so she was paid, I think, almost $1,000, and she skated. She explained she didn't know the rules, and she hadn't really intended anything, and so I think a fine or some penalty was paid at that point. And that was the beginning of simply giving the middle finger to the law by Kamala Harris. This
is the beginning of her political career.
Scandal when she ran for district attorney. So in San Francisco, like many of our liberal cities in California, there's campaign finance funds that are available, but there's also a benefit that you get for mayor. I think it was a little bit higher, but for district attorney and mayor, it might have been the same. It was $211,000. So if you agree to cap your raising and spending at $211,000 in 2003, you got a statement published in the voter guide that's mailed to all the almost 500,000 voters in San Francisco, registered voters, saying that you had voluntarily agreed to confine yourself to that spending cap. So it's like a level playing field, and it's a little bit of a gold star that you're agreeing not to engage in corruption, wasteful spending, cronyism by raising money from all kinds of unknown sources. So she agreed to that. She filed a piece of paper, she signed it under penalty of perjury, saying, I, Kamala Harris, agree to this voluntary spending limit. Most of the other candidates in the race and candidates for mayor during that race, they also agreed to that spending limit. Okay, so most of the candidates running for office in California, in San Francisco rather, agreed to that spending limit. Well, it turns out that Kamala Harris, who, by the way, started out in this campaign third, behind her boss, Terrence Hallinan, who was in the lead, and then a guy named Vic Fazio, who was a former prosecutor, then defense attorney, who was going to be the hard-on crime guy. He was eventually endorsed by the Republicans in San Francisco. So she was third. She was the underdog. And so she was getting no traction at first. So she realized she was going to have to really supercharge her spending. Willie Brown helped her with this. Willie Brown also helped raise money for independent expenditures to support her as well. So it's a funny story, but one of her campaign themes was that she was going to be tough on drugs, tough on marijuana. And back in 2003, the recreational use of marijuana was not legal in California. And so she was going to be tough on pot. So apparently some pot activists who didn't like this, they were poring over the campaign finance records, and it's a pot activist who realized that Kamala Harris had raised over $300,000 and had spent over $300,000. So this person went and let the other campaigns know. They filed an ethics complaint against her. And at the end of the election, she had spent over $600,000, so triple the amount that she was allowed. But thanks to hiring a good lawyer and making the excuse that, the form changed, I didn't really understand the meaning of this, so please lift the cap, she got the San Francisco Ethics Commission, and by the way, many of those people on the Ethics Commission owed their positions to Willie Brown. She got them to look the other way on this gross violation. It's a crime, by the way. She could have been prosecuted.
So just like this last campaign, ended up being she spent $1 billion, 20 million in debt, paying celebrities to endorse her. Beyonce, 11 million. I'm just saying, paying celebrities to come out and support her. That's what she did. So we know she can't budget money. Okay, I'm gonna skip past some of this.
And after I got a national coalition of civil rights organizations, ranging all the way from the American Civil Liberties Union to the Beckett Fund, a conservative organization. So a whole panoply of almost 30 civil rights organizations. Only when I had a massive press conference on this issue did Kamala Harris, 4 years into this case, finally agree to settle the case. So, you know, and why would she do that? Well, the prison guards union, it turns out, only wanted accommodations for certain people, but not others. And they didn't want this newcomer coming into their ranks. So you know, it was a blatant violation of my client's civil rights. But I finally won, but only after exerting outside pressure. And this has been her pattern typically. She's only willing to back down, not because she's wrong, but because she's embarrassed or confronted publicly. And even then, she's had such a...
And that's why she's not running now. She's embarrassed about the record. She's embarrassed about the truth coming about by. But we could all see anybody that had anyone in their family who had dementia or Alzheimer's. You could tell something was wrong with him. You know? And that's why she's not running. She was the border czar and didn't do shit but tell the truth that her and Biden signed on to the Global Compact of Migration through the United Nations. And I got a video on that. Y'all need to check that out. And that's what they did. At the time of their administration, the United Nations was running our borders.
Entire career of faking her way to the top, that there's just no shame there. And, you know, she's willing to continue to lie until she gets
She gets to be Attorney General of the state of California after failing as a prosecutor for San Francisco County.
Well, again, it's the machine politics of California. You mentioned Gavin Newsom. You know, at the same time, there was consideration of whether Kamala Harris might run for governor. And basically in the upper echelons of Democrat politics in California, these things are all worked out in advance. You know, multiple people might want the job, and I can guarantee you that's happening right now in the case of Nancy Pelosi, who's, you know, reaching the end of her at some point of her, you know, it'll naturally expire. But there's a lot of jockeying like that. You know, which constituency is it going to be? Gay? Is it going to be Asian? Is it going to be black? Who's going to get the prize? So it's kind of like that. So
that's all that matters.
All that matters is identity politics. So, you know, at that point in time, she was a district attorney and she could have run for multiple different offices. Senate wasn't open at the time, so she ran for the attorney general position. And so despite this massive, and I could go on for hours, I have a dossier of horrific instances of gross civil rights and human rights violations that occurred on her watch. She had a resume, and she had the powerful backing, and she checked the boxes of identity politics. First woman, first African American, first Indian American. So she checked those boxes. She ran against a highly competent, seasoned district attorney of Los Angeles County, Steve Cooley, who I consider a friend and who's been a fellow warrior in the pro-life movement with me. Steve Cooley ran the strongest campaign that year of all the campaigns, and he narrowly lost by a handful of votes. He was winning on election night. This is a familiar story to people who've been watching elections recently. He was winning on election night, and then in California, we don't have election day. We have election 2 months. People are able to vote for 30 days before the election, and then they have 30 days to count the votes. In Florida, by the way, they typically...
That's a damn shame. What happened till you vote that day? It's counted that day. Period. You stay up all night till they votes are counted. This is how they cheat. Wow. So we know how that end. Woke up the next day after that and she won.
To do journalism. And so multiple jurisdictions in the United States have ruled that journalists going undercover, even if there's a wiretapping statute, are not to be prosecuted for that because of the First Amendment. They're exercising their free speech rights. Well, California has a wiretapping law. It's never been used against a journalist. So it's a single party consent state. So under the rule, both people have to consent to the taping. Now, the exception is if it's in a public place, which most of these tapings, arguably all of these tapings in California were made in a public place. So Kamala Harris ignored the First Amendment and custom made the first prosecution of a journalist in California history. So David Daleiden was indicted for undercover journalism 7 years ago. And his case has been pending now for 7 years in San Francisco.
Still pending after 7 years. It sounds familiar with their administration. Lawfare. Wow. Wow.
For only taking up the slam dunk cases. And even there, she had a very low prosecution rate in her later years. And so,
I mean, if you just descend, to 25,000 feet, she's this member of the law enforcement community, she says. She's the prosecutor in both San Francisco and then statewide in our largest state. And both the city of San Francisco and the state of California became more dangerous and chaotic during that same period.
Fact.
And so nothing happened tonight. So today's fentanyl bin that you see on every corner in San Francisco, the gangs of young criminals who come into the city. When she ran for district attorney in 2003, she proudly noted that she was one of the few prosecutors who was opposed to a proposed law, a proposition that would allow prosecutors to treat juveniles who committed violent crimes, prosecute them as adults. She was opposed to that. She wanted to protect the juvenile violent criminals and the people who would go on inevitably to commit greater and greater crimes. So she's been soft on crime at the same time calling herself a top prosecutor all these years. I mean, she has been open about what she is in many ways, but, packaged it in very slick terms. And because she's a woman and because she's a minority and because so much of our culture panders to this identity politics, she's been able to somehow get away with the Marxist substance of what she had peddled.
A minority, it's hilarious. And unless you're Hispanic, you are a minority in California, no matter what you look like or where your ancestors are from.
Right.
Facts.
I mean, in a state like California where there's not a white majority, can you...
American youth. But I mean, that itself was focus tested, I think. And
growing up in...
Oh my God, don't tell me. Hell no. You can't make this up. How? Damn. Every time. You can't make this shit up. I'm gonna have to find another way to store my information.
You think that on point?
Let's see where I'm at. Damn. I cannot believe this. I'm really pissed. I lost all my... Well, let me do it. I'm going to have to do it this way. So we just going to get to her dad part. Because this has really messed me up. That was so good. That interview was with Tucker Carlson. And that's her origins of how she got started. Kamala Harris, Marxist dad, issued warning against mass immigration, serious problems for blacks. I need to put this with how immigration hurt blacks. Hold on. Let me find that. When I get to that, go back to that. that right here. Now, this is what her daddy had to say. I had to write that down. Now, let me go back here to this other phone so I can see if I can get to where I left off. So, this is what her dad did. Donald Harris, a professor at Stanford University, issued a warning against mass immigration of low skilled workers in a 1988 treatise he co authored titled Black Economic Progress An Agenda for the 1990s. And this is her dad. She kind of looked like him. She don't talk about him that much. Jamaican Indian man. And they don't have a really good relationship at all. Trends in international trade have moved against U.S. workers. U.S. immigration laws have been modified in ways of who compete with native born youth and low skilled adult workers for low skilled jobs. This shift has been a particularly serious problem for blacks, who, who constitute a high proportion of low skilled adult workers, according to the book. Here's a Marxist economist. He don't shy away from that. Has just a Lives just 2 miles away from his daughter in Washington D.C., but they rarely speak. So you knew this, and you didn't give a damn because guess what? George Soros, you was bought and paid for by George Soros, Black Boule, the gatekeepers for the Illuminati. That's who you are and are. The chilly relation stretched back to Harris' divorce from Kamala's mother in 1972 and his losing a bitter custody battle. The book, published just 2 years after the 1986 immigrant amnesty law signed by then President Ronald Reagan, is typical of far left economic thinking on immigration. Vermont Bernie Sanders was once a sharp critic of mass migration and blasted open borders as a Koch brothers proposal. It should make everybody in America, it would make everybody in America poor, Sanders said in 2015. But we all know that because it definitely hurt black folk. Vice President Harris has supported granting illegal aliens pathways to citizenship and continues to make the idea a pillar of her 2024 presidential candidate. That's one reason why you lost, because the majority of Americans want them the hell up out of here. Go home. And she allowed millions of illegal aliens current to come in. Her father says the welfare of native born citizens, particularly those who have historically faced injustices like Black Americans, must come first. The problem with illegal immigration isn't merely economic but existential. The Harris campaign and Professor Harris both did not respond to the request or comment. Dang, that was good. I gotta keep this article. I'm gonna have to end this. I'm gonna have to probably come back to this. Oh, let's go to our next one. So the last job report under the Biden-Harris administration was a great embarrassment. Kamala, Kamala has lied for years about their pathetic job growth, which has never been real. Because what they did was, and Trump and administrations laying off what they did was create government jobs, and that is not GDP growth. You created all these jobs so the job fair numbers could look, but these people weren't necessarily needed, and you bloated the government with all these millions of jobs you created under the government that were really not needed. That's the part that came out. And what did Trump do? He laying them off. And I mean, I don't want nobody to lose their job. Don't. That's not what I'm saying. Now, this article saying which had that the economic pathetic job for which has never been real. She killed 46,000 manufacturing jobs, while 773,000 Americans have lost employment in just the last year. This happened in 2024, all while their jobs have been taken by foreign born workers. America is a nation in decline because Sleepy Joe and Lion Kamala didn't do their job. Trump will fix it. Make America great again. Go vote. That was an article, and those numbers came out like November 2nd, right before the election. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. I'm about to come back with part two because I'm really pissed. I lost all my information and I got to get it all back because I don't want to continue to yeah, let me do part two. I'm coming right back. I'm coming right back as soon as I get my information back. Like, share, subscribe.